Sherman coming to you again for round 2 of our series of Quarantine Blues. A seminar on getting past this quarantine doldrum that you may find yourself in. You can see I'm wearing a little bit of green here, so you can determine the date of this installment. Last time we hit on a few things that I hope will elevate your playing to the next level, get you off one of the biggest plateaus, which, if you recall, and if you had time to apply yourself to the task at hand on the sheet that I provided, major minor overlapping, so to get that sweet and sour thing going. So tonight I'm gonna take it to the next level. After we connect that up and do a little recap. But first I'm just gonna warm up my fingers on a little bit of blues in E. So warts and all, no touch-ups here, no airbrushes, just the blues, okay? Just to warm up my hands. Here we go. A warm-up after all. Okay, so I covered a lot of different things there that go beyond the major minor pentatonics, but just to show you, and I incorporated some of that, but I also included something that will be leading right into tonight, the Mixolydian Mode. Okay, so just a brief recap on the pentatonics that we did last time, going back to G, and just a little bit of the practical theory surrounding why we would make that shift in scales. Is it mandatory? No. A lot of people have made great careers out of just playing the minor pentatonic, doing just fine. But when you hear it enough past the 3 solos in a row kind of thing, you get ear fatigue. You're thinking, there's something wrong here. They're not following the chords. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to touch on the chords. So what I did here, I took a loop station and I did a couple bars of G and a couple bars of C7. And why I did that was I isolated the major to minor shift, just so you can hear it. And you could do the same, or you could record yourself by some means. So I have this thing ready to go. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you blow by blow here from the G to the C how it sounds and how you have to book match excuse me, your ideas, say, in this first position. So let's stay with this one column here tonight, primarily. So major, form 2 from the 3rd fret. And for the minor, over the 4 chord, we'll use form 1, good old form 1. Now the trick of this is, I want you to go to the nearest note when the chord changes. So if you can hear that, Musical chairs, the old game, some of you younger guys might not, and gals might not remember this, but you go around the chairs while the music's playing. When the music stops, you grab the nearest chair, somebody gets bumped, okay? But the moral of the story is, the application here is, you go to the nearest note when the chord changes, okay? So when I come out, and I'm going to call it for a little while, then I'm just going to play. So here goes. So you get 2 bars of G and then 2 bars of C7. Okay, so over the C, form 1. Major over the G. Zigzag a little bit and notch over to the nearest note when the chord changes. So, okay, I'll just call out major, minor. This is minor, now major. Minor. Major. Minor. Major. Minor. Major. Okay, so you don't need to be that fast. I was just showing you, you don't have to slow down and make it so analytical. Just get crazy with it a little bit, but see if you can find the note. A couple tricks that I would endorse here at this point. Pretend, oops, my first string just broke. How would you play then? This forces you to make the shifts at different points. Okay, so you'll learn to just land on your feet like the cat in midair, turning gradually to the next note. So major for about the same amount of time. If you stop there, go to your nearest note, which would be this. So say you only got 4 beats. I gave you 8, but say you only had 4 beats, you'd be going. So if you can see what I'm doing there, I'm going to the nearest note after that increment of time. You have to kind of budget your time. So don't worry about licks. Licks are only going to get in the way at this point. And like Grandma used to say, eat your meal first and then you can have some sweets. So the licks will be the sweets that you'll put on the top of this nice meal that you'll have once you know where the best notes are going to be, the best phrases are going to land. Okay, so that's one idea. So go, and you can do this all across the neck if you've gotten your scales filled in. Form 3 is going to be weaker for, I think, most of you players. You're not going to be as familiar with that one, which in major on G would be at the 5th fret. For minor, that would be at the 8th fret. Okay, so just fill in those gaps and learn to work from point to point. Okay, now if I were doing that, if for some of you hot shots, you won't have to stay in this first column. You could go up to the second position here, which would be minor, major, minor, major. Now I'll go up here, major form 4. Oh, sorry, minor first. Major form 4. Minor form 3. I'll go up here, major form 5. Minor form 4 now. Major form 1 at the 12th fret. Form 5. So if you're at that level, go for it. You know, keep going onward, upward through those. That's good. Every day do that. One more thing on this before we leave that recap. On the sheet, you'll notice that on the major scales, there are some little donuts, some little O's there. Those create your Ionian mode. So if you're into keeping score on modes, that's the major scale, the mother over the 1 chord scale. So for G, that becomes. Okay, the do, re, re mi scale we all grew up with. So handle with care though, because right now you're trying to get your grounding with fewer notes, which is a good place to start. The pentatonic is a great scale to deal with because it's simple and very forgiving. The major scale is not going to be as forgiving. Okay, so handle with care, but don't be afraid to practice it so you know where the overlaps are. With the minor scales, you'll notice that I put the flat fives in there for you. Okay, and those are shown. And those are the most volatile notes to put in the minor scale, and they deserve some discussion here. My understanding is, and I may be wrong, I'm not a musicologist, is that when the African scales collided, that were brought by the slaves on the ships, collided with our major, our do re mi scale, those overlap notes created this. And those of you familiar with Jimi Hendrix, and who isn't, you know this. Those are tritones. We'll be talking about those later too. Special case thing, they're very volatile tones. They used to call them the devil's interval, I understand, forbidden in church and so forth. But those creep in when you're doing these other scales. But the flat five, and I remember asking a Dixieland jazz clarinet player who played some really sassy blues lines, I said, what's the best way I can advance myself beyond just this minor pentatonic kind of phrasing? And he said, get into your flat fives. And I didn't know what he meant at the time, but I put them on the chart for you. So in our scale, form 1, it looks like this. There it is. Right in there. And right here. Now, if I were to play a blues in G, which I can, I'll play just the minor pentatonic, the way a lot of folks play. So very bland, right? But the minute you throw in these notes, look how ugly they would be. Those are the flat fives in there that I have marked on the chart. So how do you handle those? You have to handle them with care, but boy, do they sound good. See, there's the note. You don't want to stay there, but here's the other one. We've all heard that one as I turn around. See how I'm handling that with care on a strong beat? Okay, so if you can hear that, start putting those flat fives if you haven't already done that. A good reference for that, Deep Purple song, Ritchie Blackmore featured a lot of those. This is an early one, 1971. You can find it. It's called Strange Kind of Woman. Check that out. It's a nice drive and little swingy rock tune. And he's doing a lot of the... If you like that sound, you're used to hearing it, you want to get that in there. So, and there'll be some of that in major pentatonics as well. So those are the two ingredients that are on that sheet. At the end of lesson 1 that may have confused you a little bit, so I wanted to clarify that. Okay, so I talked about that. I talked about pretending that one string is broken and shifting that way across the forms. Let's go back to just what I call the first column. Okay, so you've got on the 1 chords. And I just proved when I played along with a looper that this is the one, the minor that we usually use for all things, is best on the 4 chords. Now what we're going to do is we're going to introduce something that'll be on a chart at the end of this lesson, if that's where it ends up, and I hope it will, is called the Mixolydian Mode. Now keen eyes will notice that the Mixolydian Mode, after you've studied these enough, is just a major scale starting on the 5th tone. So the 5th tone of G, G, A, B, C, D, means you're starting on the D note, which is the chord we're going to play it over. So here's a D7 chord. There are many. Hope you're aware of those across the neck. We'll be talking about chords in a future seminar, how to do this. So on the D7, in your column, it'll be the 3rd column on the Mixolydian Mode. So the top row, I've given you Mixolydian Mode and the arps. Tonight we're talking about Mixolydian Mode. So on the third column. So 1, 2, 3, from left to right, or right to left, doesn't matter, it's the third one. Pinky on the 5th fret. Okay, if you're with me on this. So I'll call out the frets. Stay in position, 1 finger per fret. 5th fret, now the next string. 2, 3, 2, 4, 5. So 5, 2, 4, 5, 2, 4, 5, 3, 5, 2, 3, 5. So here they are. And you can tell that that sounds really nice. Now when I recap next week, I'm going to show you how important that is to play that over the 5 chord, to not be playing the... Now you'll notice that through usage we've gotten used to that sound. So if I incorporate in a D7 that note, you know, it just creates a Jimmy chord, so-called, the 7 sharp 9. So we're forgiving of it, but it doesn't sound as right as having that note, not this note, because that's in the chord somewhere. And you can do some passing tones in there too and other notes. So I'm just going to show you how that sounds in the context of our song. So I'm going to put on the G blues. I'm going to play major, and I'll play as simply as I can. I'm not going to do any flashy stuff here, but I'm going to call out what I'm doing. And then I'm going to make it a little fancier as you go, and then you can see how this can evolve and blossom for you. So form 2 on the 1 chord, G, right here in this column. Staying here, we're not going up the neck and flying around. Form 1 from the 3rd fret for the 4 chords, the C chords, C7. And on the D7, the 5 chord, we're going to be doing this new Mixolydian mode. Okay? So I'm going to do that very simply, and here I go. And I'm going to speed of about 80 or something on this, just so you know, if you're keeping score. I'll call out the scales. Major. Minor. Major. Minor. Major. Mixolydian. Minor. Major. Mixolydian. Major. Minor. Major. Minor. Major. Mixolydian. Minor. Major. Now I'm gonna get a little bit fancier, and I'll just... showed off a little bit there at the end, but who's counting? Anyway, hope you can hear that. If you're at this point in this second installment here that we're doing tonight, where you can hear that, you can hear how much better that is going to sound. And I'm not trying to tacitly, you know, flatter myself here. I'm just saying that is a better approach, even though I leave my mistakes in just to show, you know, I'm fallible. You will notice how much better that's going to sound. You're investing in something that's going to serve you very well in the long run. And as you put licks in there, as I started to, they're going to creep in. Let them come in. Just don't make those the focus of your evolution, because otherwise you're not going to grow with this. So you've got to suffer through this to build a better foundation under your house, just like they do these days. You know, find a nice house for cheap, get a piece of property, jack it up, make a foundation, drop it on. That's what we're doing here. Okay, so you got your Mixolydian mode, which you can move all across the neck. Now there's some other applications of this on the G7 chord. So if we look at our blues, our 12-bar blues, analytically the first bar would be G, second bar would be C7, so we got our major minor shift nicely. The third bar would be G7, G, and then at the end of the line you'll notice in a blues there's kind of a build. Most bands will have the drummer going. Then so a crescendo, and then it brings down. That happens twice, usually in the blues, at least, sometimes more, where you'll build. During that build on that G7, where it goes from G to G7, sometimes you even drop this and make a jimmy out of it. We've all heard that kind of thing. That's when you want more than just the pentatonic thing. You'd like to have something extra to put on that. Here it is. The first column in the Mixolydian row of scales is a G7. So here I am from G. We're not going to do major pentatonic now. We're going to do the Mixolydian mode, 3rd fret. So I'll call it the frets and spread out here. There's a shift at the end, by the way. So 3, 5, 2, 3, 5, 2, 3, 5, 2, 4, 5. A shift. First finger goes to the 3rd fret. 3, 5, 6. 3. First finger. 3, 5, and stretch if you want to the 7. And you'll hear me grab that note every now and then. I'm guilty of that. I love that note in there. So if you happen to be coming off of Form 1 and you go into major, you could be on the Mixolydian. That's a nice sound. You hear it all the time. I hear harmonica players do that. They'll slur up to that note and go. They'll grab that note in there, which is a 9th. We'll be talking about those intervals later. So they do that. And they'll hit that note and hang on that thing, and everybody goes, wow, where did you get that? So, but this note too is in there. Sorry, I won't put that flat note in there. So that's a really nice. Do you have that much time? No, you got 4 beats. What are you going to do? So if you happen to be around this area, you might play or something. Or if you're in this area, as most players are, and the C chord occurs. So you can hear it. It has a build to it. So in that case, you can get one more Mixolydian application, which you can use over any G you want to, but I think it's very effective on that 4th bar. So major, 1st bar, minor for the 2nd bar, major again for the 3rd bar, Mixolydian for G, 1st column scale, and then you're off to the races. Next line is 2 nice long bars of minor pentatonic, 2 nice long bars of major, and you could throw in a little bit of Mixolydian on that last G. That's at bar 8. Then bar 9, you're solidly into the D, D7, so the D Mixolydian, and then go into Form 1. And at that point, I'll also say that that's one of the turning points. When I listen to soloists, I hear how they come off a 5 chord to the 4 chord in a blues. Very telling point. I don't know why that interests me so much. Maybe it's just the way I hear things. But it's sort of the home stretch, isn't it? It's the last 4 bars. So when they're coming off that and they're coming off the D7 and then going back to C7, I hear this, and I did it once in my little demo. Turning that corner and finding that upper note and then coming back. Again, it's that go up, low, high, high, low thing. If you can get that and find that and turn those corners nicely, you're going to be so happy with your playing, I guarantee you. And that's no hype. It's just the fact of the matter. You're going to be able to find the next best note. And I think that's that kind of thing. We call those target tones, if you want to call it that. A note you target, you think, I'd like to end up on this note and make this sound like it was meant to be. In other words, like it's a solo that you rehearsed, but you didn't. You're creating in real time. Spontaneous composition. Okay? So I'm going to do that again, and I'm going to incorporate the G Mixolydian and also the D Mixolydian. So I've got one, I'm only going to use the G Mixolydian in bar 4, okay, just to keep it simple. And I'm going to use the D Mixolydian in bar 9, and I guess a little bit in bar 12, okay? So here I go. I hope this isn't too fast. I'm going to slow it down a little bit, actually, because we're getting into stuff here where you got a lot to think about, right? So I'm going to keep it simple first few times. Here I go. Major. Minor. Major. Mixolydian. Minor pentatonic. Major. Mixolydian on D. Minor pentatonic. Major. Mixolydian for D. Okay, so even if you can't play at that speed and keep a coherent line going, hopefully you can hear enough of what I'm doing that you could do it even at a slower speed. And don't be afraid to practice at the absolute slowest that you can even imagine. I'm just trying to keep the line coherent, keep a thread of logic going on. And if you find out you're having trouble going from one type of chord to another, loop it, put C7 to D7 and run it back and forth until you can find just the right amount of balance between the idea and wrapping it up and getting to the next chord. That's the essential thing here at this level when you're making this conversion to a new way of thinking, a new way of playing. So I hope you're enjoying these lessons. We're going to keep going as long as we can, and if you can give some feedback on them. I don't know how that would be done, you guys, on this new interweb that you kids are doing today, but I guess you can do that. If the comments aren't deleted, I won't delete them anyway. You can say whatever you'd like. I invite that kind of constructive criticism, I hope. And so that concludes the basic overview of that. Next week we'll be getting into arpeggios, arps we'll call them for short, and I'll show you how to play which just means broken chord. They're the broken notes of the chord. I'm going to show you how to go up and down each chord to find the safest and best, strongest notes on any chord at any moment. It's a good thing to have in your bag of tricks because you have a safe note to land on at any one time. And that kind of thing, you hear a lot of that in earlier forms of jazz. So hopefully you'll recognize the elements that you want to bring into your playing. I'm hoping to, in the future lessons, we'll be talking about double stops, creative ways to do them, creative ways to bend strings that I think you might not have been too familiar with, and we'll just see where it goes from that point. But you've got a good foundation now. Try to keep up as best you can. And this week, for those of you that are still in the zone there of adjusting to this, just stay with column 1. Don't go any further, okay? We'll see you next time. Stay well, and happy St. Patrick's Day.